Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the UPMC Rooney Southside Complex. I'm Bob Pompiani, soon to be joined by Missy Matthews as the Steelers coming off a win last night, 24-17. Big night of rushing, 172 yards, a very accurate night for Kenny Pickett, and arguably his best game since he's become the starter. And looking forward to a game this week, 1 o'clock, KDKA, it'll be the Atlanta Falcons in Atlanta. Mike Tomlin is ready to address the media on what happened last night and looking ahead, so let's go upstairs and join the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Good afternoon. As always, I'll start with a quick synopsis or reflections in our last performance. Probably the thing that I failed to mention or emphasize last night that really kind of caught my attention this morning was the production that we got from a lot of different areas. People rising up and making significant plays for us. And really, I just think that has to happen at this point in the journey that is the season. Due to attrition or people evolving, I just think that people get an opportunity to put their hand in the pile and be reasons why we're successful. Guys like, Matt Wright, banging field goals. James Pierre, I thought, had a significant interception that kind of jump-started us and put us on a short field. Or the collection of running backs of Benny Snell and Anthony McFarland, for example. Guys that had elevated roles and really delivered for us in a really positive way. I just want to, congratulate those guys and be thankful for the efforts that they were able to display. It doesn't happen just solely in the stadium. This is not a patient man's business. We never ask these guys to be patient. We ask them to simply work while they wait for the opportunity. And their work shows when they get the opportunity. And I thought that was reflective of all of those guys. We'll always have an inclusive mentality. Cody White got called up and elevated and was a contributor at wide receiver and on special teams as well. And I'm just thankful for that group's collective readiness and the playmaking that added to our cause in a big way. The negative components of play, man, I just thought, like I mentioned last night, man, our kickoff coverage was not good. We were missing Miles Boykin and Robert Spillane, but, boy, it's unacceptable. Particularly because of where we're going this week and matching up against Patterson, who is the best there is at that. And so we got some work ahead of us in preparation on a short week to shore up that component of play. And we can't chalk it up solely to players available or unavailable. We got to look at all aspects of that unit in an effort to shore up that. And we can't lose the field position component of play in the manner in which we did. I thought that kickoff, particularly that started the second half, was a catalyst that provided some momentum for them that took quite a while for us to settle down. And that's just the nature of ball. Things to learn and grow from. We'll continue to do so. We'll do so in a short week this week as we push forward toward the Atlanta Falcons. From a health standpoint, we had a number of guys. They had some things transpire in the stadium. Don't have an update yet on Naj and his abdomen and what that might mean. Just not enough time since we landed and getting that looked at. But as always, his participation in practice and the quality of that participation will be our guide in terms of developing a role for him and what that might look like. A lot of other guys had bumps and bruises associated with play. Mika Fitzpatrick was being evaluated post-game, and I think he was unavailable for some of you guys. T.J. Watt, Larry Ogunjobi, Miles Jack. We don't anticipate any of these guys missing time, but these guys, along with others, because we were working on a short week, may be limited, particularly at the early portions of the week. I may do some things globally in terms of how we work on a Wednesday, for example, in an effort to be inclusive and bring the preparation to some of those guys who are a little bit less than ready to start the physical work that is preparation. But that's nothing new. That's just life for us and life for anyone that's coming off of Monday Night Ball. We're not going to make a big deal out of that. We'll just simply do what's appropriate, prepare our guys, and put them in position to step into our next stadium. Let's talk about the Atlanta Falcons briefly. They got some things that pose a significant challenge. First, I was talking about Patterson and what a dynamic return man he is. The field position component of play, his resume, what he has been, man, needs no endorsement from me. It's just been nothing short of special. And the things that he's able to do on offense as well. I remember going to his pro day over a decade ago, and really just thinking what a special athlete he was. At that time, Tennessee had used him a little bit on some toss sweeps and stuff, exclusively out of the backfield. He had been a return man and, some wide receiver screens and things of that nature. But to watch those talents evolve over the last decade and be the dynamic playmaker that he has been as a wide receiver, as a running back, as a starter, capable runner, as a dynamic return man, I just got a lot of respect for him. And, boy, we got to minimize his impact on the game, and that's no easy task. But also looking at the offense, Mariota's mobility is a challenge. Their schematic use of his mobility is a challenge. I think it starts there. I think anytime you're looking at a quarterback with a unique skill set in the area of mobility and they have schematics to match, that has your attention. Those are the type of things that level the playing field, that create space, that produce splash plays or big plays, and we just can't have that. He's got a quality group of young eligibles to throw to, led by Drake London. I think he's their lead receiver. But he does a really nice job of spreading the ball around. I imagine having a quality veteran like Mariota is good when you got a collection of young eligibles. He's probably a major component of their development individually and collectively. They get after people in the offensive line. I see a commitment there. The zone scheme running, the stretches, the doubles. They just do a really good job of getting hats on hats and moving the train along, as I said. And then the schematic use of quarterback mobility is a big challenge. On the defensive side of the ball, man, Dean Pease is a vet. He's a been there, done that guy. He understands us. We've competed against him a lot over the years, got a lot of respect for him. He's fundamentally sound. At the same time, he's aggressive. They get after you in a myriad of ways, man. You got to be prepared to deal with the schematics that he throws at you. From a player standpoint, Grady Jarrett is dynamic. It kind of reminds me of Geno Atkins, a guy that I'm probably more familiar with. Oftentimes, I'll compare guys to guys that I'm familiar with. He's dynamic in that way. He's a tough block one-on-one because of the athleticism in the run and in the pass. He can create negativity in your game by ending up in your backfield. And so, man, we got to do a good job of trying to minimize the negativity that he brings. I think they got quality edge people and deep edge people. They drafted 2 relatively high in the draft to go along with Carter, who kind of leads that group. Rashard Evans, man, is playing really good football for him. He's their green dot in all situations player. He has a history with Coach Pease extending back to Tennessee, and I think you just see that in how he plays. I imagine that is a big asset to him as an individual and to them as a collective, man. He's able to communicate and be a hub of communication, a defensive quarterback, if you will. His productivity speaks for itself. He's well over 100 tackles. He's one of the top tacklers in the league, and I'm sure Coach Pease is excited about having a guy run the show that he has an extended experience with that goes beyond their present location. In the back end, A.J. Terrell, I think, is really, really talented, man. Got an opportunity to spend a lot of time with him in draft prep when he came out, and it's being reflected in his play. He's aggressive, man. He's a line of scrimmage guy. He gets after people. He's agile. He's got ball skills, man. It was a really impressive interception he had and off coverage on that comeback this past weekend. But they got a lot of talented young guys in the secondary. They utilize them all. John Hoke, their secondary coach, man, has been there, done that guy, a veteran guy I've known and respected over the years, man. And I just think they do a really good job of keeping you off balance with their collection of people, how they divide their labor in the schematics. And so on a short week, we got a lot of things to cover. It's important, obviously, that we work our tails off to stack this victory, man, and move on in our journey. And I think that's enough to have our attention as we prepare. We're excited about getting the guys in the building tomorrow and starting the process with them. I'll pause and open it up for questions.
Mike, you mentioned a lot of different areas being able to produce last night. What do you attribute that to when it comes to the offense?
I don't know. It's just daily work. Whether it's the offense or guys stepping up in special teams or on defense, I think we used everybody in the secondary in some form or fashion, James Pierre, Arthur Millette, and others. We just work diligently every day. And, we continually trying to put 8 pounds in a 5-pound bag as an analogy that I use because you just never know we get an opportunity to call upon it. And I never ask guys to be patient. I just ask them to work while they wait and to display their readiness when called upon. And that's what a lot of guys were able to do.
I think you had 3 guys go for 30 or more yards for the first time since the 90s. Is that something when it comes to a different approach or mixing guys in?
Injury.
Some of those guys, their attitudes, you can make the case that Pierre, Snell, McFarland were demoted or had lesser roles early this year than they had in the past. Have all their work ethics and their mindset and their been buying in during this time?
I think we always acknowledge that roles never stay the same. They're ever changing. And so sometimes it's positive, sometimes it's negative. This is football at its highest level. I think all guys know and understand that, and that's why they walk in the building with the spirit that they do every day. You got to earn it daily. And those guys continue to walk in with that spirit regardless of what the division of labor might be because they need to be ready for their next opportunity.
Like aside from, I think you used the phrase, the battlefield promotion that McFarland and Snell had, aside from that aspect, the actual running of the football, what did you like most about what those 2 guys did?
I thought they stayed within their skill set. Benny is a deliberate one-cut downhill runner. Ant Mac is bursty and explosive and good in space, and I just thought they leaned on their strengths.
Mike, what's been the biggest thing that you've appreciated out of Mason Cole? He's a guy, this is his first year with the team. He's had a multiple weeks where he started off kind of limited, but been able to step up for you guys in a big way.
Man, he's a sharp guy. He brings a can-do attitude. He's a winner in his approach to ball. He's a good communicator. His football intellect is really solid. And is helpful at that position in terms of the identification of protections and the picking up a blitz game.
Mike, as far as those 5, how far have they come? What kind of progression have you seen from the offensive line?
Continual, but not that we're surprised by that. I think that's a reasonable expectation when you're working hard diligently daily.
Is there any long-term concern over Najee's injury?
Not as I sit here right now, but I don't have a lot of information as I sit here right now. I had no more information right now than I had last night when I addressed you guys.
Kenny mentioned that he gets asked, what he likes, what he doesn't like. I'm curious, how much input has he had now, from the start of the season? Any more, any less?
Yeah, I think it's a natural progression. I just think the more he gains experience, the more he's engaged in the process of game readiness, the more there's a give and take in communication in terms of what's appropriate from a play selection standpoint. Just natural business in terms of dealing with quarterbacks and their inclusion in the process.
Sort of along the lines of that give and take that you might be having with him, one point that was brought up a couple times during the broadcast last night, Aikman had said that when they spoke with Kenny, he didn't focus so much on the speed of the game jump from college to the pros being the biggest challenge, but the volume of defense that he's seen. We've talked to him about that. What interactions you've had with about taking on that volume of defense that you see now in the NFL, maybe they didn't see in college?
That's the transition that everyone has to go through. It's the same thing for receivers. The myriad of coverages and the bastard coverages that you see and the complexities of the things that you see requires adjustments and thinking on your feet and running adjustments, and it's a challenge for all young people on offense, probably receivers just as much as quarterbacks.
Dan Moore, it looked like maybe in the first quarter he got beaten a couple times and within 2 or 3 snaps, and then the rest of the game it looked like he was solid. Just about that bouncing back, and then just him in general, how he's progressing here.
It's football. The National Football League, you're going to lose some downs. There is ebb and flow. But you remain singularly focused on winning. When you do that, you don't tote bags of negative plays. And that's what we ask all the guys to do. It requires a certain level of maturity, and that's something that Dan has showed since day 0, and that's why he's been such a significant contributor since day 0.
Has Devin earned a bigger role? He played a lot more this game in terms of in the divisional labor at inside linebacker.
Robert Spillane was hurt.
Yeah. He played more than Miles, too.
Miles was hurt maybe the week before.
Coach, your Monday Night Football record's 19-3. What do you chalk that up to?
I don't. Man, I get singularly focused on each opportunity. I respect Monday Night Football. I make sure our team does. I just appreciate it from a fan's perspective, somebody that loves football, that grew up pre-Sports Center, man. Howard Cosell gave you the highlights from the day before, and that's about all you saw. And then after halftime, my mom would make me go to bed. And so I just love and respect it, and want to be prepared for it and put my best foot forward. But, I have no response to the record that you mentioned.
Does the win last night mean?
No.
Mike, you mentioned roles with different guys. What's Arthur Mullet's role, and what kind of can you describe the intensity he brings to the game?
He's a rundown nickel. He's a good blitzer. He's a good tackler. He brings a demeanor for a small guy that's kind of reflective of the dominant nickels that play. All the nickels that are dominant ones are angry little people. They don't stay blocked. They don't get blocked. They blitz extremely hard and well. They tackle big people. They play with an edge, and he fits that mold.
Like one Atlanta things, as far as looking at how they've embraced the pass a little bit more of late, the last 5 to 6 weeks, from what you've been able to glean in the limited time you might have had so far, was that just a matter of them getting some success against Carolina in that 1 week and kind of building on that? Do they need that, do you think, to enforce what they wanted to do passing-wise?
I just think all of us are very much in development over the course of the season, and there are different things that occur that are breakthroughs, if you will, or accelerate that development. And maybe what you mentioned was for them, but I'm never surprised to see an evolution of a unit or a person or a team over the course of a season. As a matter of fact, I'm surprised when I don't see it.
Deontay expressed that he wanted to be targeted maybe a little bit more in the past. But how would you grade his performance last night?
I'm sure he does. I'm sure every receiver in the National Football League does. He made the necessary plays, and we're appreciative of his efforts. The target game, I'm not going to play that. You can play that every week with every receiver. Everybody wants targets.
What have you seen in the maturation of James Pierre as a guy that you guys have been able to call up? He's been multiple times this year where he's kind of come off the bench and been an asset for you guys, gets an interception and a couple breakups in this game.
It's just not too big for him. I just think that there's a steadiness in him that maybe wasn't there before, and it's probably just reflected more than anything in levels of communication, the conversations that you can have with him in game. He's present, he's aware, he can articulate the things he's seeing, and I just think it's just where he is relative to where he's been.
You talked about Patterson, but they have a couple of rookies that are running pretty well too this year. How do you prepare for their skill sets as well as Patterson's?
They do the same thing regardless of runner schematically.
Pickett, its first comeback, when you've talked a lot about his ability to do that or whatever, is that from observations in the stadium when he was with Pitt in games, or is that from seeing him, just knowing him in general, or is it both?
Both.
Mike, you have a lot of young guys or guys that aren't used to being in this locker room, just yet still figuring things out. But what does it say that you have so many guys like Dan Moore, like James Pierre, guys who can be resilient in the middle of a game when they make mistakes and find ways to win?
We expect them to. This big boy football, we expect them to.
Anyone else?
Did you get any sleep last night?
No, none.
You've done it before, you'll do it again. How do you manage a week like this, a short week?
It's business. We're not paid by the hour. We embrace that. We're competitors. This is a competitors' week.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
We're not paid by the hour. No sleep. That's part of the job, right?
Right? Not surprising, though.
But at least you sleep on a win. That makes a big difference, doesn't it, Missy Matthews?
It was a better plane ride home, that's for sure, but it is a short week, and you know how coaches are very regimented and like what they do on certain days, and on a short week like this, cram it all together. So it's Tuesday, but it's also Monday, and players, don't have to be in the building until tomorrow now.
And I think coaches, especially like Mike Tomlin, they like their schedule being on schedule. They don't want disruptions, and that's why this press conference is right after a game like this.
Right.
You don't want to change it, right? You get back into Tuesday mode, then it's a Wednesday mode. That's kind of how they operate.
Yeah, but you figure last week they had an extra day to prepare, an extra day to get healthy. So, there's pros and cons to which way each goes. He did mention some people who had bumps and bruises, like Minkah Fitzpatrick was being evaluated after the game. We didn't see him in the locker room. TJ Watt, Larry Ogunjobi, and Miles Jack. Still no update on Najee Harris, as, the game just ended a few hours ago, and here we are today. So I'm sure we'll learn more when practice resumes tomorrow and, you see the first status report.
But Mike Tomlin, with regard to getting past injuries, and Najee Harris, obviously started this game without Jaylen Warren. His comment, work while they wait for the opportunity, and that pretty much sums up what you saw. The fact that they got 172 yards rushing last night, and they followed that up after a nice performance last week, that's significant with these guys. Talk about motivation. You get an opportunity, you don't know what's going to come. I think that that is well learned by those guys, and they have to be ready.
Right, and especially, Anthony McFarland was called up right before the game. Benny Snell is somebody who's a core special teamer, as Coach Tomlin put it, but he was still doing his special teams duties and, helping with the Steelers offense. And, there was one point where right before Najee Harris went to the locker room, right before half, he came over to the running backs as they were sitting on the bench, and he was very happy that all of them were contributing, all of them were putting their hand in the pile and, kind of giving them a little motivation. I don't think he was able to foresee that he was going to end up leaving the game and not coming back, but it seemed like they started getting on a roll early, which was good when you came out for the second half and did not have Najee. And, the kickoff return, things just started to spiral, not in favor of the Steelers and in favor of Indy.
And you see some of these runs, he's making good cuts, he's aggressive getting to the line, and then he's bowling people over too. And, the one thing I've noticed, it's been in short supply with Benny Snell, the more work he gets, the better he seems to get. When you only use him sparingly, I don't think you're going to get a lot of, yards. I mean, he took advantage, knew where the read was, like that play, the play we saw earlier where he made a cut and then ran over people. But that's a good job by the offensive line when you see more of that. And I think also that's the big story here. It's either committing to the run a lot more, which has opened things up, and no coincidence, they're scoring more points.
Everyone's been calling for the run game improving since week 1, and it feels like the past 3 games we've seen what they are capable of. We've seen the O-line gel throughout the season, but then getting Najee going, getting other guys going as well, and they didn't have Jaylen Warren like you said. But it was good to see Benny Snell and Anthony McFarland. Even Coach mentioned James Pierre, the interception early in the game. You kind of forget that happened. Just guys that have to keep working and waiting for an opportunity, and then when you get it, you have to take advantage of it, and what better place than on Monday Night Football.
And we saw that touchdown by Benny Snell. That was the game winner, and I don't think any of us would have predicted that the game winner on a Monday night would be from Benny Snell with a lead block from Gunnar Olszewski. But that's what happened.
And it worked. And, Kenny Pickett even said after the game he's very comfortable with Benny Snell. It's somebody who, through the offseason and training camp, he worked with a lot during, the reps that he got. So it was something, the touchdown, he was very confident on the 3rd and 2. There you see it there. To be able to tell, quarterbacks coach Mike Sullivan and Coach Tomlin, hey, I think this will work. This is what we want to do. And you saw it right there.
Yeah, that's part of the maturation of Kenny Pickett. And we'll talk a lot about him in this next, 30 minutes or so. He's confident. He goes in there. He knows what he likes. He knows what he thinks will work. And he's not afraid to say that. That's more of an expanded role. And I thought, since we're talking about number 8, it was his most complete game. When you look at the numbers, 20 for 28, 174 with like an 87 rating, that doesn't, if you look at a box score, if you just pick it up and look at that, you probably say, just, dinking and done, whatever. I thought he was accurate, decisive, and 20 for 28 could have been 25 for 28. That's how consistent he was with some drops along the way.
And I thought, especially in the first half, the offense was really rolling, clearly not letting the Colts on the field that much. They didn't have their first catch, first completion until about midway through the second quarter, which is, insane when you think about it. But it was good to see, obviously, in the second half, as I said, with that kickoff return and the Colts starting to pick up some pace and being able to finally score, that started to hurt their chances. But again, at the end, the Steelers offense, Kenny Pickett, even the 2-point conversion play to George Pickens.
Best play of the day, I thought.
Pickens just followed him, and you knew he had to give Pickett a chance. Yeah, Pickens just followed Pickett to make sure that he was going to give Kenny a chance, and it ended up working out. A fourth quarter comeback, that's something that I think we were spoiled with and just used to when Ben Roethlisberger was here. So it was good to see this young offense be able to put that together, have that on tape, and take it moving forward.
Yeah, I think Brian Batko of the Post-Gazette tweeted out, that's his first comeback win. He has 43 more to catch Ben Roethlisberger. Yeah, you're right. You get spoiled by that with Roethlisberger and his Hall of Fame career here. But it's the start of a nice career, you hope, for Kenny Pickett. And what a way to do it on the road in that environment to get your first win. They have another road game coming up in a dome. It's against Atlanta. We'll talk about that. We'll also break down more of the Steelers' offense and defense as we continue. This is the Steeler Tomlin Tuesday Mike Tomlin press conference, back with more on Pittsburgh CW and Steeler Digital platform, so don't go away.
Welcome back to Ford Truck Talk. Today we're looking at the new F-150.
The official truck of the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Wow, did you see that lane change?
Another smooth play by the F-150 with great execution of that parallel park job.
Absolutely stunning.
Newcomers take note.
And now you too can win this Ford F-150.
Professional, show-stopping, built Ford tough. But we shouldn't expect anything else from the best-selling trucks in Pittsburgh.
Jimmy, Mason Cole said you called that play at the end there, maybe small touchdown. Is that something that you just have maturation now, or would you have done that in week 2, week 3, week 5?
Yeah, Coach T, puts a lot of confidence, in myself. Just, asks me what I like, what I don't like. I feel like that play, just watching from tape, all week. Simple play, but something I feel like other teams weren't doing that I think if we gave it a shot, I think we could have been successful. We were in 4-down territory. So we were going to go for it again on the next play if we didn't get it. But I felt real confident with that play and, real happy we got in the end zone.
Do you say to Matt, I want to write this, or you run this, you go to Mike?
We have a great, open communication. I'll go up to Coach Soley and Coach Tomlin, and, we had a conversation, and, that was the play I brought up. I felt really confident about it. They felt good about it too, so we rolled with it.
What's the conversation that you guys are having amongst yourself on the offense between the third and the fourth quarter when you're coming out, you got a third down, third quarter didn't go the way you wanted it to? Just what are you guys talking about?
Yeah, just get that first down, and we feel like we moved the ball really well. So, we had those, I think it was the 2 3-and-outs, slow start, just based off of execution alone. Nothing schematically, nothing X's and O's wise, just flat out us executing. I got to make throws, we got to make plays. And we would have been on the move just like we were in that first half. So that's something that we definitely need to clean up. But really happy with the guys, how we responded, how we were on third down. In that fourth quarter, I think really helped us, come away with the win.
What does it do for you personally to have not only your first road win, but your first fourth quarter comeback? You guys were, I think, 0-6 when you trailed going into the fourth quarter before tonight.
Yeah, there's a lot of positive to take from it. It's really hard to win in this league, and right now we're a 4-win team. Right now we have to own that, and we got to chip away at it and get back to winning.
As a Main Street bank, PNC has helped over 7 million kids develop their passion for learning through our Grow Up Great initiative. And now we're providing billions of dollars for affordable home lending programs as part of $88 billion to support underserved communities, including loans for small businesses and low and moderate income areas. So everyone has a chance to move forward financially. PNC Bank. See how we can make a difference for you.
I respect Monday Night Football. I make sure our team does. I just appreciate it from a fan's perspective, somebody that loves football, that grew up pre-Sports Center, man. Howard Cosell gave you the highlights from the day before, and that's about all you saw. And then after halftime, my mom would make me go to bed. And so I just love and respect it and want to be prepared for it and put my best foot forward.
Well, Mike Tomlin certainly has done that. 19 wins, 3 losses on Monday night, and he talked about the importance of it. It is a big stage. Obviously, he has preached that to his team, but a big stage for a quarterback and a lot of rookies last night, like Kenny Pickett. Really first opportunity to be on a Monday night. I'm sure they cherish those, and he put forth a pretty good effort last night when you look at the accuracy in particular, Missy.
Yeah, there was a really good energy inside Lucas Oil Stadium for the Colts. That was the first Monday night football game they hosted since 2015. So, they were jazzed up. Steelers fans, as you know, pumped. They travel well. They like to make themselves known. And, TJ Watt, Coach Tomlin, just during pregame warmups, you feel that energy. And ESPN Stats and Info just tweeted that Coach Tomlin has the second highest win percentage of any coach on Monday Night Football, trailing only John Madden. So, 19-3, that's a lot of times on primetime, but it seems like, he gets his teams ready for those matchups. But in terms of Kenny Pickett, as you were saying, the 3-and-outs back-to-back, especially that third quarter, not good for any phase of football there. But we have seen Kenny Pickett not turn the ball over, and coming out of the bye week, that was something they very specifically, went back and watched, and just maybe throwing it away or, keeping it, different things as we've seen him use his legs. And now he's attempted 100 passes without an interception dating back to week 8 when they were in Philly in the fourth quarter. So it's something that he was conscious of, and now it just feels like we're just used to it because he's been able to do it for a chunk of games. And I don't know about you, but it would be great to see them be able to stack wins because that's something we have not been able to see yet this season.
Right, but when you make passes like this, again, those are right on the money. Between two defenders, just the accuracy part of this, and this quarterback draw, I thought was a great call at that point because he can use the legs, and people are spread out, and all of a sudden there's an opening up the middle. But, Missy, when you put it on the money, you give guys an opportunity like this to run. And I think that's going to be very important in Deontay Johnson's future here. He's a guy who on slant patterns, if you put it right where he has to, he has the speed that can break away from defenses. The more of that you see, the better it should be for the Steelers generally moving forward offensively.
Yeah, you saw the one that, you thought he could potentially have in the end zone, and even George Pickens, there were 2 plays just back-to-back where he didn't catch the ball. He was very down on himself on the sidelines when the defense was out on the field there. And, Kenny Pickett made his way down to where the wide receivers were and kind of gave him a little pep talk and told him to stay with it and that, we will continue to go back to you. And you saw some of the big catches that he made that really did help them continue to orchestrate drives after, the 3 and outs and not being able to move the ball so well in the second half.
Yeah, there were some drops there that, again, that stat line could have been better. It could have been 23, 24, 25 for 28. And over the years, we haven't seen, perfect is hard to do, but Roethlisberger at times has had, 13 for 14, 26 for 29, those kind of games. This was one of them. And again, that play right there, that's what I'm talking about. He had to make that quick decision. He was getting blitzed up the middle, put it right on the money, and then Deontay went a little backwards instead of going forwards on that play. But the pass itself was terrific, as was this one.
Yeah, and I think just keeping the offense more balanced because they are able to run the ball is something that helps Kenny make better decisions. It also, makes the defense respect what they're able to do. So something to build on, and, they have more games to continue to do so, starting with the Falcons in Atlanta on Sunday.
And I think this 2-point conversion was the best play of the night, just in my opinion, because it displayed everything that Kenny Pickett is trying to do and his connection with George Pickens, who knew that his quarterback was rolling. He didn't stop on the play. He then came back to it, and that ball had to be right there because the defender
very tight
had come
window,
back.
yeah.
So those are all significant things for the Steelers who, again, put together a nice run game to complement, and I think things do open up when you have the run game. What about the offensive line? Early on, Dan Moore had a couple of opportunities where he was Ngakoue is a very good player, so you would expect that. But I think after that, he kind of settled down. It's a tough job to be left tackle in the National Football League.
Yeah, I think, we've seen them improve week after week. I think they've taken some steps back, especially penalties is something that has hampered them here and there throughout the season. But I think, what happened against the Bengals and being able to clean things up and have this type of game. But I think, it's just the confidence that they're building when the backs get going and they're able to run the ball. Offensive linemen love to run the football. Yeah. Mason Cole has been that steady Eddie. As Coach Tomlin said, he's a great hub of communication. He's very smart. He can help Kenny Pickett, identify the mic and whatnot as he's getting ready, being a rookie. And, there was a loud environment yesterday in the Dome. So I just think that, Mason is somebody who has been dealing with injuries but stays in there and really does a great job of trying to keep the guys in line and together as much as possible.
In case you just joined us, Mike Tomlin did talk about more opportunities for Kenny Pickett to maybe use some of the things he sees out there. He spoke about that earlier today in the press conference.
I just think the more he gains experience, the more he's engaged in the process of game readiness, the more there's a give and take in communication in terms of what's appropriate from a play selection standpoint. Just natural business in terms of dealing with quarterbacks and their inclusion in the process.
I think that's very important for Kenny Pickett as they continue to monitor his development for the rest of the season, that they give him more opportunity to do the things he sees out there. And he was adamant about, if you talk to Mason Cole after the game, which I don't know if you were in there for that, but he said that was all Kenny Pickett. He believed in that play, and he wanted that play. And so that's good. And the more you see of that, the more confidence coming from the quarterback.
Right, and Kenny has had to have this accelerated approach to getting ready to be the starter. It was not what was in the cards at the beginning of the season. He was the backup, and then it's, halftime of that Jets game, hey, you're up, and you just got to keep rolling, and that's why they say a lot of times he's here inside the UPMC Rooney Sports Complex, watching film, studying, talking to coaches, just doing whatever he can. He has that drive to want to be the best and to help his team, and, maybe it's not as fast as everybody wants. Coach Tomlin talked about that last week. It's not a patient man's business, but at the same time, there is no learning curve. There is no grading on a curve. It's just something that has to happen. And it's a young group of guys who, seem hungry. And as you start winning and things start feeling better, I think it's going to help them.
It will. And it also gives them a springboard for something going into next season. If you look that far ahead, all this experience will be helpful to not only him, but his wide receivers as well. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about the Steeler defense, which made some big plays at big times last night. We'll get into that. And we'll take a look at the Atlanta Falcons next up when we come back right here at the UPMC Rooney Sports Complex on the South Side. Don't go away.
Game starts at 20, best slip is empty. I gotta call KG.
KG, what up? I got nothing for you, Fox.
Ah, come on.
Jalen.
You wanna tell?
Yeah.
Don't call somebody on live TV. Well, you answered. I have other friends anyway.
Marshawn, Barry.
Listen, I need some tips.
I like L.A.
L.A.?
No, Dallas. That's
Dallas.
Dallas not
Dallas?
the best. We gotta get to Miami. How about Detroit? Nah, Barry over there.
I'm gonna call y'all right back. Good message.
I got a tip for you. Always go with your gut.
I like that. Let's go with our gut.
They kind of hurried up to the ball and, watched the film and kind of knowing the position the tight end was in, I could kind of tell that he was going to try to cut me off. There's going to be a run play, back depth, and just seeing how quick they were getting up to the ball, I knew they were going to do a run play. So, just trusted my instincts, just, shot it.
What does it say about the defense? I know second half, Colts got going, but you guys were still able to hold them there at the end. Just what does that do for you guys to be able to
Yeah, I think we were just resilient, on that stop and also on the one where we recovered the football. But we know we didn't play to the way we were capable, especially in that second half. They got a couple long drives on us, a couple touchdowns, and so we just know we got to be better. I got to be better. We all got to be better. And so we came in with the victory. That's what matters most. But we know that we can be a lot better.
What do you think was the biggest difference from the first half to the second?
Yeah, I felt like they came out and they were able to establish the run. I feel like we didn't play that as good in the second half, and on the drives that they did score, Jonathan Taylor was run the ball really good, and so we just can't ease up in that aspect because I felt like we sat down the run very well in the first half, and so we just got to play a full game when it comes to that.
Overall, though, you feel like you guys did a pretty good job against Taylor. I mean, he never broke the long one. I think his longest was 30.
Yeah, I felt like we kept him contained, but it's we got to get back in the film and watch, just get better at, making the pile fall backwards because there's times where, we had them stopped and the pile just fell forward. And so we just got to continue to get better in that aspect. But, we just got to get back in the film room and tomorrow and look how we can improve.
Were you surprised to see Wormley come up with that one? Were you guys kind of watching on the scoreboard what happened there?
I mean, I was in and I was outside and I got off. And at first I thought, Matt Ryan recovered it. But then I saw Worm just find his way into it, so he did a great job, made a great play for us.
Could your favorite casino app be even better and faster than ever? You bet, because the all-new BetParks app has been built around what you really want, with easier sign-up, faster withdrawals, and all the slots and table games you love. Plus, make your first deposit and get a 100% bonus match up to $750 and 500 free spins. So, are all of your favorite games just a tap away? You bet. BetParks.
It's just daily work. Whether it's the offense or guys stepping up in special teams or on defense, I think we used everybody in the secondary in some form or fashion. James Pierre, Arthur Millette, and others. We just work diligently every day. And, we continually trying to put 8 pounds in a 5-pound bag as an analogy that I use because you just never know we get an opportunity to call upon it. And I never ask guys to be patient. I just ask them to work while they wait and to display their readiness when called upon. And that's what a lot of guys were able to do.
Yeah, I think that's a great message the head coach Mike Tomlin sends to his players. You never know. And, don't be patient. Keep working. If you want to keep bugging me, go ahead, but keep working just in case you get a chance. So we saw that on the offense. We also saw it, guys like James Pierre, a big play early. Now, they didn't capitalize on it to a point of a touchdown, but at least it sort of gave them the advantage moving forward and I think made a little statement for their defense.
I think especially the Steelers secondary maybe took, a little bit to heart in terms of just what they were putting on tape, first of all, but just the criticism of the pass defense. So it was nice to see how much they mixed in different guys when you actually look, Mitch Trubisky, Mark Robinson, the rookie who got called up because Robert Spillane was down, and, a backup offensive lineman were the only people who did not play a snap in this game. Of course, there's a lot of guys that we saw in the secondary that play special teams, but there were a lot of guys involved, and as you said, it would have been great to capitalize on that interception, but that also, sent a message to Matt Ryan and the Colts offense that, we are maybe not what you think we are, and we do have those capabilities. It's been very Jekyll and Hyde with them all season, but, James Pierre also had a nice pass defense as well.
Yeah, we saw that big fumble recovery by Chris Wormley there because that was in Indianapolis shooting themselves in the foot right there. They had multiple opportunities to get the ball in the end zone because of penalties, and then it's a fumble by Jonathan Taylor on the exchange, and Wormley seemed to go down and rip it away from Matt Ryan. And if you're Matt Ryan, you probably don't want any part of that battle, but that's a big play as it turned out in the game.
Yeah, it was almost, I was kind of behind the play when it happened. Jonathan Taylor just seemed to close his hands before he even had the ball, and I think, Matt Ryan did his best. But, yeah, when you're going against Chris Wormley or another defensive lineman, I think, you're probably going to lose that battle. But, they could have kicked a field goal. So many things I'm sure they're talking about, discussing what went wrong. But for the Steelers, especially, just with the way the momentum shifted so quickly, they came out from halftime, and you're like, oh, man, this is a totally different ball game where you go in with such a big lead. So it was good to see them get that stop. And then, it took a little bit for the offense to start going again as well and not going 3 and out.
We saw Jonathan Taylor there with the fumble, which you talked about, Missy. The one thing about him last week, Mike Tomlin talked about limiting his, amount of yardage he gets. Now, he got 82, I think, at the end of the night. But it didn't seem to me like it was effective in the first half. They had 0 yards at the end of the first quarter. I think most of that was because they were not running him as much as maybe I thought they would. He eventually got some runs going there in the second half, specifically the third quarter, but generally he did not have the big runs that Jonathan Taylor is known for. And I think when you limit that, you put it all on an older Matt Ryan, and I don't think, he's not the same Matt Ryan, and the Steelers took advantage of that too.
Yeah, his longest play was 13 yards in terms of Jonathan Taylor in rushing. I think, there weren't the big splash plays or maybe the gashes that you saw. There was the quarterback sneak by Matt Ryan that I don't think anybody was expecting, maybe not even Matt Ryan as well. But, once Jeff Saturday took over as the interim head coach, they sort of changed their philosophy, switched back to Matt Ryan, and they got the ground game going because, heading into before he took over, it was just weird that Jonathan Taylor was not putting up the numbers that we saw last year. So it's something that, at least from the outside looking in, makes sense. Why wouldn't you want to get your ground game going?
Yeah, exactly, especially with a guy like that. And eventually they did get it going because they went to it more, and you would have thought that would happen early in the game. It did not. And the Steelers, again, they made it tough on Matt Ryan. A little bit of pressure on him, and you could tell he was very uncomfortable in that pocket. Terrell Edmonds had a
interception.
Sack. And he came in and just, you could tell he was bothered by the fact that there was some pressure there. And so, they have obviously a quarterback situation going on after Andrew Luck. They haven't had much success no matter who they brought in. They brought a bunch of veterans in, from Phillip Rivers to Carson Wentz to this guy now. And at some point, they're going to have to get a quarterback in the draft, I would think. And who knows where they're going to end up with a position to do that. But it goes to show you, when you don't have a franchise quarterback or somebody you can rely on a weekly basis, it's a difficult thing to do.
No doubt. And, 3 sacks, I honestly thought that they would get to him more. It felt like there were so many times they were just so close. He obviously gets the ball out quickly, but it just seemed that there was, so many chances that they could have increased that number from 3. But as you said, you get one from Terrell Edmonds, Arthur Maulet, Alex Highsmith, of course, kind of sealed the deal at the end. But good to see. You wish that sack total was higher, but they were able to get the job done when they needed to. I think, everyone probably doesn't want to think about the third quarter and what transpired, no matter what side of the ball you play on.
But Mike Tomlin did have praise for some of those guys in the secondary, specifically Arthur Maulet.
He's a good blitzer. He's a good tackler. He brings a demeanor for a small guy that's kind of reflective of the dominant nickels that play. All the nickels that are dominant ones are angry little people. They don't stay blocked. They don't get blocked. They blitz extremely hard and well. They tackle big people. They play with an edge, and he fits that mold.
Angry little guys.
Angry little people.
They're angry, but he shows it and last night he made it difficult on Matt Ryan a couple of times.
He does have that personality similar to what the Steelers had success when Mike Hilton was here before he left for a larger contract with the Cincinnati Bengals. But, even with them, you're seeing some of the same things try to happen there. But, yeah, it was great to see, Mollett, when he's on, it just seems like he's in his zone and you just do not want to mess with him.
Yeah, overall did a very good job, the whole secondary limiting, and they didn't really go down the field all that much. But when they did, the Steelers were in traffic situations to make some plays. We'll take a break, come back with more. We'll focus on Atlanta and what's next up for the Steelers when we come back. This is the Mike Tomlin Press Conference on Pittsburgh CW and Steeler digital platforms.
Want to get gear direct from the team? Shop all things black and gold at the official Steelers Pro Shop located on the North Shore. Get the latest sideline apparel and hats, jerseys of your favorite players, authentic memorabilia, custom gear, and exclusives you can only find here. Don't forget, you aren't game day ready without a terrible towel. The Steelers Pro Shop has everything you need to be a part of the legendary Steelers Nation. Come experience the legendary shopping environment or shop online at shop.steelers.com.
George, if you can, walk me through the 2-point play, what all was going on there?
It was kind of like a scramble drill, so not really planned at all. I had a fade. He scrambled to my side. I went left, I went right, I went left, I went right. And then he ended up finding me. DB was already turned around, so just got to catch it.
You were just following Kenny there?
Yeah.
Do you think he was gonna run it in himself? He had a lot of room.
Yeah, that's kind of like what I said earlier in the week, which is crazy. Like on scramble drill, he can throw it or run it. You remember I was saying that, but this time he threw it. That's what I'm there for. And if he run, I'm there to block him. So yeah.
You've been saying every week you feel like things are starting to come together. Do you feel like it's actually happening right now?
Yeah, I feel like we come together. The more time we have, we closely gonna bond, just naturally. Like it's not gonna be no got to do this more, got to do that less. It's gonna naturally happen. Just the closer we are, and the more time we got. Like we got a few more games left. Now we starting to get the rhythm of it, and then next year we can improve a lot.
What does it say about your connection with Kenny that you were able to find each other on the scramble drill?
It just means that's kind of something we practiced a lot. You know what I mean? Like things that we go over and practice, things that that's kind of football worthy of going over, but also the chemistry. You know what I mean? Because there was a Rudy Poo out there. He probably, he probably scrambling in. You know what I mean? So yeah, the chemistry mattered too.
George, what was kind of said or talked about going into that drive that you scored? Because you just watched your lead evaporate. Now you're back out there on the field after 2 3-and-outs. What did it take to put together, and what was said there?
Literally, verbatim, keep fighting. That's literally what coach was telling us. You know what I mean? Just keep fighting, and that's kind of when everything going down bad, that's kind of hard to listen to, but that's kind of what we stood by. We just kept going.
Along those lines, what do you learn about your team when you guys come out with a win like this?
The fight and the composure and the toughness, no question. You see what I mean? When in a game like this, there's no question. I feel like we kind of actually, when the moments got harder, we kind of actually stepped up more. You see what I mean? And that's just, one day at a time.
All right, welcome back. Bob Pompiani and Missy Matthews with you, and we're talking about Atlanta now because they're the next challenge, 5-7. Games at 1 o'clock on Sunday. Cordero Patterson's the guy you got to talk about. Without, Kyle Pitts, who is their Dallas Goedert, big tight end, this is a guy the Steelers are going to have to focus on.
Yeah, Coach Tomlin said, in terms of Patterson, he is nothing short of special. Even goes back to what he remembers from the pro day and just, watching the maturation process and the time that he's been here in the league. But he is definitely somebody that they're going to have to plan for.
All right, let's talk about Marcus Mariota because this guy, it's an inside joke, folks. I'm sorry. He's a guy who can move. And, Tomlin for the last 2 years talked about, mobility. This guy can do it. He's high draft pick. He's moved around a little bit. But he can do this kind of stuff. So you have to be on, aware of it at all times because they use a lot of RPUs. They use a lot of play action. And when they're running the ball well, but not just Patterson, but also Tyler Algier, things can happen for them.
Yeah, and I think, the Steelers do have exposure and experience going against a mobile quarterback, but, after last week, yesterday, against Matt Ryan, you want to see, something shored up, I think, just because of his lack of mobility and what he was still able to do, getting his tight ends involved in the game plan, and especially in the second half. But I do think the Steelers defense will be up for the challenge, and, they are a 5-7 football team, so they're, somebody that they're going to have to prepare for.
And as far as the Steelers are concerned, this is a pretty active secondary. They have 10 interceptions. So on the defensive side for them, they're going to look to try to take advantage of Kenny Pickett, who's a rookie. But that's going to be one of the interesting chess matches in this game. Pickett making sure he's accurate with those, because those guys in the back with Terrell and also Hayward, they can intercept balls and take it back a little bit.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think, as we talked about a little bit earlier, just what we've seen from Kenny, 100 pass attempts, no interceptions going back to the end of the Philly game, something that they wanted to clean up and work on. And I just think, throwing in tight windows, just having that connection and continuing to grow and develop those relationships with the George Pickens, getting Deontay Johnson involved, but even, Pat Freiermuth is somebody he's very comfortable with as well.
Yeah, that relationship also is one that's growing too. Pickett to Freiermuth, those guys are on the same page as is Pickens, and you'd like to see more guys get in that, and time will take care of that as the Steelers move forward. So it's Atlanta coming up. We will take a commercial break, and when we come back, we'll talk about some of the injury situations that the Steelers are dealing with. An unknown one on Najee Harris so early in the week. We'll detail that and more as we continue right here on Pittsburgh CW.
Stadium is on fire. They're enjoying what they're seeing.
It's a little better feeling in this locker room now than it was last game, coming in after the game.
Yeah, we got the W. Guys worked their tails off, and having a Monday night game, you get a lot of time to think about it, but different guys had to step up, and we got the job done.
They had 2 long drives against you in that second half, but the drive that counted the most, you guys did what you had to do.
Mm-hmm. I think coming out of the half, being on a short field, we got to surrender 3 points or less. We didn't do that, and then they got down again, and Wormley got the fumble. But it's not going to be perfect. You got to keep battling out there. Our secondary made some big plays. Alex Highsmith made some big plays. And all together, we were able to get off the field.
What do you have to say about Alex's performance?
Incredible. To be able to close out a game like that as a rusher is awesome. It's something we need more of.
What's it say about you down 17-16 there after you get those 2 scores and you able to find a way to get it done?
Yeah, to be able to be resilient, to be able to get a game when it kind of ebbs and flows, and like I say, just happy with the way the game finished, obviously.
TJ, every week you guys talk about stacking wins. Do you feel like this is kind of the time where this team is going to start doing that?
We have to. That's plain and simple, we have to.
I know you answered this question, but that final drive, how important was it? Obviously, for you guys to get the stop, longer drive against this defense prior to that.
Yeah, we want to be the group that's on the field when the game is on the line, and to be able to perform like that on the last drive is huge for our confidence and just believing in the unit that we have.
For you guys as a defense, obviously, I know you're paying attention to what you guys are focusing on, but when your offense, after going 3 and out, Kenny Pickett leads the team down the field, they score, they get the 2-point conversion. What does that say for you guys, and what can you, what do you see from your rookie quarterback in that situation?
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, it's moxie, it's poise, it's all the things that we know that he can do, that he brings to the table week in, week out, whether it's on the practice field or in the game field. So
for over 30 years, Steelers Digest has been delivering black and gold news to your doorstep. Photography, game recaps, opinion, and statistics presented in a colorful, easy-to-read format. Don't miss another issue. Subscribe today at Steelers-Digest.com.
Don't have an update yet on Naj and his abdomen and what that might mean. Just not enough time since we landed, and and getting that looked at. But as always, his participation in practice and the quality of that participation will be our guide in terms of developing a role for him and what that might look like. A lot of other guys had bumps and bruises associated with play. Mika Fitzpatrick was being evaluated post-game, and I think he was unavailable for some of you guys. T.J. Watt, Larry Ogunjobi, Miles Jack. We don't anticipate any of these guys missing time, but these guys, along with others, because we're working on a short week, may be limited, particularly at the early portions of the week.
Welcome back to another Tomlin Tuesday. There you heard some of the injuries from the Monday night game. Bumps and bruises associated with play, something we always hear Coach Tomlin say, Pomp. But Mika Fitzpatrick, T.J. Watt, Larry Ogunjobi, and Miles Jack, we didn't see them leave the game or not be able to go back in, but there was some evaluation following the game, especially with Mika Fitzpatrick. We didn't see him in the locker room. So once they start practice tomorrow, we'll see more from that. But I think, everyone was looking for an update on Najee Harris, but due to the fact it was a Monday night game, it was in Indy, getting back, coach is not sleeping. I think they're going to probably have to further evaluate that abdominal injury. It started to bother him. You could see somewhere in the first half, they came over, looked at him, but he was able to go back in, was able to score, and it was just one of those things. He was there for that touchdown drive and then came off, and all of a sudden right before halftime you saw him leaving with the doctors to go, and we did not see him in the second half. But somebody who has been turning it on in recent weeks and starting to play maybe up to his standards. I'm sure there's always things he likes to nitpick, as we heard from Cam Hayward, like we won, but there's still some things to do. But for Najee, definitely want to know if you have him available. And also, Jaylen Warren missed the game. So what is his availability heading into this game as well?
Yeah, those are two very important guys. They complement, and it's becoming more apparent with Harris doing the tough yards up the middle, and then Jaylen Warren being able to do his stuff on third down specifically, but other opportunities. But when you don't have either of them, it goes to show you how important depth is. And we saw it last night on full display that Benny Snell, do I have to say Benny Snell football? That's how he likes to be referred.
I don't think he likes it anymore.
He doesn't? Okay.
No.
So Benny Snell was really good. They had 4 guys rush for over 35 yards, which is something they haven't had for a lot of years here, by necessity more than anything else. But when you do that, it helps, and guys are ready to play. And we saw that last night with Benny. We saw that last night with Anthony McFarland. And you're probably going to have to see more of it as time goes on, depending on how this injury goes. But clearly he was bothered by that abdomen injury and left the game. And quickly, Burt Loughton, the senior director of communications, said that he was not going to return. Normally it takes a while to get that distinction, but I don't think they wanted to take any chance with him.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And I also think, Kenny Pickett, you talk about Benny, got to talk about Kenny, just his ability to use his legs. I can't remember which game it was, 1 or 2 ago, the 51 yards he just did running. It's something that's, part of his arsenal and something that he is known for and he's able to pull off. As you heard from George Pickens earlier, that 2-point conversion, Kenny could have ran it in or he could have thrown it. So we've seen him use his legs, and I think also having, the quarterback mobility, as we talk about Marcus Mariota, it's something that is helping the Steelers offense find their identity and get the run game going.
That's going to do it for us today. Missy, thank you very much. It's always a pleasure. We'll see
you
you guys on Saturday night, Pittsburgh CW for the 84 Lumber Mike Tomlin Show, and then we'll be back here next Tuesday after the Steelers and the Falcons. You'll see it live on KDKA Sunday at 1. Have a good day.